Welcome to another episode of Commercial Property Roadshow. This is Helen Tarrant, and today I'm going to talk about location. Location. Now, I don't usually talk about location in commercial real estate, and the reason for that is location is actually not as important as many people think in commercial as it is in residential. Of course, there's particulars in location, like the actual property that you got to look at. So if you're looking at a growth strategy in commercial property, and you're thinking, all right, if I'm buying in this place, I want it to double its value in 3 or 5 or 7 years' time, how do I buy it? Location becomes fundamental, kind of just like residential, but also the tenant, the layout, and also what your other tenant, the tenant hub that surrounds you, and what's gentrifying in the area also matters. But location, I never really talk about it until now. And the reason I want to talk about it now is because the market has changed so much. And that's why location now starts to become more and more important, especially if you want to position yourself from going from here to here in the next 2 to 3 years. So let's get into it and talk about location. Why is location important in commercial real estate? Now, a lot of people think of location, they think, corner block, they think, oh, maybe I'm really easy to transport hubs, or maybe they think, okay, well, location-wise, I'm near this anchor tenant, there's Bunnings around the corner, and that's what I get told, there's Coles. This is what agents also sell you as well, remember, and that's one of the things to be cautious of. Agents will sell you that, oh yes, there's Bunnings 500 meters down the road, there's a massive gym, and look, this area is all gentrifying. That's what they're going to sell you, so that's great, right? And then you think, great, fantastic, the location is good. But how does that impact on your actual property, right? Does the location, right, matter, like all these other anchor tenants, do they matter more? Well, one of the most important things is to actually look at the traffic flow, right? So let's just say that Bunnings is across the road from you, right? And you're directly across the road from them, right? Now, if you have a coffee shop, maybe that's really good. If you have a pizza shop, maybe that's really good. But people, when they go to Bunnings, aren't thinking, oh, I need to go and get a pizza, I need to go, because there are sausage sizzles there at Bunnings, right? But they may go across the road and grab a coffee and sit down and work things out. But they're not really thinking of that buying thing. They're not also, if you have a clothing shop or professional services across the road from Bunnings, well, the only benefit you have for your client is really that they can park in Bunnings and then come over, right? So they're not really giving you any advantage of having Bunnings across the road, right? However, if you're an associated tenant, right? So if you are in trade, let's say you supply, lighting, or flooring, or carpets, or any of the things that are associated with similar things to what Bunnings does, then being across the road, even if you have a furniture store, right? Being across the road becomes fantastic, right? Because people who are going there are looking for a specific thing, and maybe they won't find it in Bunnings. Maybe they're just going there, they want to see your showroom and they want to see what you have to offer, right? That's also complementary businesses, right? That's where location becomes more important. And this is why we say, when we look at a commercial real estate, we want to go, is that particular tenant suited for purpose in that particular building, in that particular location, in regards to everything else around it? And sometimes they're not, and you have to swap out a much better tenant, right? But if you had a professional service, like a lawyer's office, an accounting office, a dentist even government services, what does the Bunnings do to you? Most of the time people going there during the day are tradespeople, and maybe your evenings and mornings you get people who are DIY, and then during the day you get speckles of them. So how do they affect you? Really not, right? But where it comes to location, right, it's really about matching your client to the actual property, and then the location comes in. So this is where location becomes important. So let's say you have a tenant that is a law firm, and you're looking at assessing a property. Number one thing when I look at a law firm, an accounting firm, is that I'm going to look at the tenant hub and the location. Now, why is that important? Well, if potentially my tenant, a law firm, is going to pay, let's say, $800 a square meter, right? I want to make sure that it's an A-grade fit out in a prime location, in a prime building in Sydney Metro CBD, Melbourne CBD, or Brisbane CBD, right? Because I know that in order for that law firm to stay in that location, stay where they are, I need to be buying a property in that location, right? I need to know that as long as I have a property in that location, my tenants are all going to be professional services because they can afford the rent. But everyone else around me in that location has to be paying similar rent and have a similar caliber of tenants. So location and tenants are very, very linked. And that is also very important for you to assess. And many people get this wrong. They go and they go, I have lots of trouble tenants. Well, the tenant and the location didn't match up. And that's the reason why, right? So then now let's say that, all right, now you've got a law firm and they're paying $40,000 a year, right? Well, if they're paying $40,000 and you're buying it in a prime location with A-grade fit out, A-grade other tenants and location, then they're paying too below the market rent. Something is wrong with that picture. Either the tenant is a lower end law firm and they can't afford it, or that it hasn't been negotiated properly, or there's been some history in the building that has impacted on this tenant paying market rent. Now, this might be a great uplift opportunity where you need to renegotiate the rent or refurbish the property. So you bring it up to the level where they're expected in terms of fit out and amenities, or simply they're just the wrong tenant, right? So maybe the tenant is in different type of law that does not suit in that area and the clients don't go and visit them, right? So they may be more suited for suburbia where they can pay $40,000 a year. So you may then need to swap out that tenant and put someone who's maybe a brand name a law firm instead, brand name psychologist, or maybe just Ally Health in there, right? The same thing goes with location and things like H&R Block. So for some of you, you would know that H&R Block loves the location of corner, well frontage. That's their signature, right? That's part of their franchise. So if you have a property in that location, right, and they're the key tenant for it, then I would be pursuing them, finding out property managers that can actually have them as a tenant, putting them into your property. Or if you're purchasing a property and you see H&R Block and they're on the corner, then you know that they are the perfect tenant for that. So it's a good match, right? Location and tenant match. Trifecta, well, not quite trifecta, but this is where you've got a win-win situation, right? And that puts you instead for you to put rents up over time, knowing that the tenant is sticky and is going to stay there for the long term. So it all flows on, right? And then of course, what makes the trifecta is the tenants that surround it, right? So if there's other kind of professional tenants. Now, if I'm looking at a dentist, I'm going to make sure it's ground floor. I mean, there are dentists now upstairs, but most dentists, ground floor, glass front, retail premise, lots of screen exposure, lots of retail sort of glass exposure, and that it's got that clean, nice fit out. But the fit out is not important as the location of it. We need to see foot traffic, right? Even though as much as dentists market, remember, they're not marketers, they are dentists. They're here to fix your teeth and do it well, right? In order for them to do that, they actually just prefer clients to walk through the door. And most of the time they prefer a place that has some kind of parking, some visitor parking. They prefer that it's in a hub with lots and lots of other supporting businesses, and they prefer that location with ground floor, glass front, that disability access, but also lots and lots of places where they can stick up their advertising, people can walk past. Walk past traffic is actually one of the key things for a lot of dentists when they're deciding whether to take a premise or not, right? So the fact that they're near a school, the fact that they're actually near other aging population, or maybe in an area that is gentrifying, it works really, really well. So location is really important for some key tenants like that. And this is where when you're scouting properties and looking at properties, you got to look at the location and whether the tenant matches the location. But you also got to look at the location and goes, who else will come into this premise that's going to do well here because of the location? And can I maintain my rent at this location and keep moving the rents up? So that's where the location becomes a key, becomes a factor when you think about the deal overall, right? So on that aside, then what else are the location things? Well, one of the things to look at with the location is what's happening in 1 street, 2 street, 5Ks away, right? So is the area changing in terms of their road and traffic? So if you are in a place that is a two-way street and it gets changed to a one-way street, that for food business can really impact a food business, right? Are you at the bottom of a high rise, but there's nowhere to park on this side? So people can't literally park for 15, 20 or an hour to jump in and buy a bread roll or a coffee or just have a quick lunch, right? I've seen the difference between a business on one side of the road to the business on the other side of purely because of parking. This is where location becomes key, right? If you're in a high traffic area, and a lot of retail, food and hospitality want to be in a high traffic area. Now, that makes location really important. They want to go, and this is also one of the things McDonald's, KFC, Woolies, and all the big brands look at, is that they need to have something that's having 20,000 cars passing, and that happens to petrol stations as well. And of course, when we're looking at a location for childcare, they look at the surrounding demographics of the household as well. This is where location becomes important. When you're retail and food services, the parking outside, right? You will see that one side of the shopping centre strip could be really booming and have really longevity in tenants because people can just literally pull up front, right, and pop in and do their little thing. Sometimes people just want to grab a quick snack, right, or a quick coffee, or just pick up their pizza, right? So, but being on the other side of the road where you can't, where during high traffic times, and this could be their key times, could be around dinner time, say 5 or 6 o'clock, or 5 to 7 o'clock could be peak hour traffic. People just simply cannot pull up, or it could be morning times and they simply cannot park. That's where it's actually going to affect business, because people don't want to drive around the block unless, for a cup of coffee or a bread roll. They will drive around the block to look for a specialist, their accountant, or to visit like a lawyer or someone who's a specialist in their field, but they won't do it for food services. So this is where the location really becomes important. That parking at the front really becomes key to all of these things. And when you look at location, you've got to assess, right? But also what's happening, not only just in that street, but 2 streets away, 3 streets away. Now, is there old properties that are being converted to more upmarket properties? So is there old buildings or warehouses like we're seeing around, Alexandria? We've seen the transition in Queensland from Fortitude Valley, where it was grungy and old and not doing anything to this area where it's now upmarket. And we're seeing that in areas around the Gabba, in around Brisbane, but we're also seeing that we saw that in Alexandria, we saw that in Waterloo, we've seen that in Melbourne, in a lot of the areas that are fringe to Melbourne, right? And Docklands is a prime example at the moment. It might be a ghost town, but when the students come back, there's that gentrification. But of course, when you're looking at this, you got to think, okay, so when I'm looking at these properties and I'm assessing the location, what is happening 2-3 streets away? Because when you buy a property, it's not just for today. When you buy a property, it is actually for 3, 5, 10 years, and it's really your pathway to financial freedom. So you got to look at, okay, so surrounding me, am I going to get like tenants in this location, right? Surrounding me, how much competition am I going to get, right? If I start, and this is a prime thing for one of our clients, when they first started in an area, they were the only vegan cafe there, right? But over time, the 5 years they've been there, there's 3 other ones that's now popped up. Now, obviously, that's creating competition. But that competition, what that results in is that maybe you couldn't put your prices up. Maybe that results to the fact that you had less customers, or that you had your rents are now going to start going up also because the area is filling up. But of course, if there's more apartment blocks being built, it can service that area. So you've got to look at what's happening in the area, and is the area gentrifying in a good way? So is the old warehouses being turned into apartments, loft apartments, or is it being turned into like coffee houses, like trendy little eateries, professional services, medical services? These are the key things when you're looking at location for your business, or when you're looking for location to put a tenant into that business, or when you're just looking at assessing a deal with a tenant, whether that tenant's right for that location. That you want to know the area's going around, it's growing and it's changing. You want to know that there is a chance you can put the rents up because of your location. There's a chance also that later on that location becomes key, is surrounded by other gentrified businesses, so it supports your business, but also makes it easy to retain it later on, and that it has the attributes that your tenant and future tenant needs to be able to keep it tenanted, keep the rents going up, and keep your value moving forward. So one of the keys to location is to identify how much value being in this location versus 2 streets away, 1 suburb away, or in another state is going to deliver you in terms of value growth in the years to come, right? Versus buy any other property. So on that note, if you've got a property you want us to assess, you want us to advise, you want us to consult to you, but more importantly, you want us to help you build a commercial property portfolio that has cash flow growth and uplift, reach out to us, helen@unicorn.com.au. We're a Unicorn Commercial Property. Check out our link, get the book, find out everything there is about commercial property, keep watching my videos, keep hunting for that commercial property, build out a unicorn portfolio rather than look for the unicorn, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.